And I hope we're going to start with a report about our rental voucher program. So, Ashley, I guess I will turn it over to you. Is that?
Sure. So we have 2 new applicants for the Littleton Rental Assistance Program, and if I may, I can share my page with the cover sheets.
You should be able to.
Sure.
Okay. All right. All right, so LRAP 14, being a 5-person household with the annual income of $16,432.68, and the current rent is $1,100 per month. Preference points being a total of 11. And then checking off all of the boxes for the checklist here. And then the second applicant, LRAP 15, 1-person household, annual income of $12,216, and the current rent is $396 per month. Preference points total of 9, and then all of the documentation which was collected and reviewed.
Okay. Thank you. This is for our first program. These groups both sound eligible. Does anybody want to comment?
No, they sound pretty straightforward.
Okay, does anybody want to make a motion?
Make a motion, we approve LRAP 14 and 15, was that right?
That's right.
Yep.
Second
I
it.
was listening.
Okay, so I hear there's a motion and a second. Was that you, Angus?
That was Matthew
Oh, that was
seconded it.
Matthew, okay. All right, so if there's no further discussion, let's move to a vote on the motion to approve LRAP 14 and 15. Mark?
Aye.
Cindy?
Aye.
Angus?
Aye.
Bartlett says aye. Matthew?
Matthew is aye.
Then it's unanimous, I believe. Approved.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you, Ashley.
Okay. Okay, so Ashley, how many active recipients are there now?
Hold on a second. Including the newly approved
Yeah,
folks?
sure.
I believe that'll make 8. There were 6 before. Yeah.
Okay.
I believe it's 9 because one person was approved back in August.
Okay.
Okay, Ashley, let's just make sure that you and I close the loop on that because I'm seeing payment for in September for 6.
Okay. So if you two can figure that out, what the actual number is,
Yep.
and so then we can figure out what we're spending per month and what, how long this program will last.
Yeah, I have some of that information.
Okay.
Share that screen. Oops, sorry. Did I share the, yeah, I did share the right screen. So in September, there were payments to 6 different households, total of $1,500. In August, there was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 households. July was 6, and it's been building since January.
Right.
And we had estimated, or you had approved
Initially,
up to 18 slots. So,
so we've got some room
yes.
to maneuver.
Mhm.
Okay, does this program continue automatically, or do you need a comment or a note from the recipient or the landlord to continue paying each month?
Yeah, I believe after a year, it's reapproval, right, Maren?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
They can renew after a year,
Okay,
up to a total of 3 years.
right. Okay. Is there any other discussion on the rental voucher program? No. Okay, shall we move on to the emergency rental program? Can we, is there a
Yep.
report on that?
Sure. So we had 2 people apply for the emergency rental assistance program, being the first 2 enrolled in the program since it started. Let's see here. And the total for ERAP 1 and ERAP 2 is $2,100 for November rent. And this is based on the size of how many rooms
Right.
the individual is renting.
Yeah, and so the exciting thing we learned about this is the November and the December rent payments will be reimbursable through the CARES Act. So accounting is already working with that process. So those funds will not come out of the Affordable Housing Trust money. It'll be automatically paid through the CARES Act fund.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So that it'll come in automatically and not, we don't have to do it and then get reimbursed.
Correct.
Wonderful. Okay.
Yeah, Ashley still had to go through the whole billing process, but it was just using a different accounting number.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay. So no new applicants on that. Just the 2.
Just those 2 individuals.
Okay. All right. So we're okay. Any further discussion of that?
Nope.
Okay, let's move on to the next item is minutes of the prior meeting from September. I and my wonderful organization was not able to locate those meetings minutes, so I cannot offer an opinion on them. Should we vote on that? Have other people read the minutes?
I have.
Okay. Anybody else?
I have not. I didn't know where to find them.
All right, then let's table that and wait until our next meeting to approve those minutes from September. Is that okay with people?
That
Yes.
sounds great.
Fine.
Okay. All right. So number 4 is update Metro West Collaborative Development's work, which we got a lot of information from Nancy. And we should start a discussion of it. Nancy, do you have anything you want to say to start off?
I don't know. I sent a lot of information. Basically, what I was trying to do 2 things. One was to answer the questions that Maren had sent me that were highlighted in yellow
Right.
on those questions for the Housing Trust. And then the other one was just to kind of summarize summarize the documents that Cindy sent me, as well as the 2 reports that you guys had, to try and see if we can kind of take a lot of stuff that's in a lot of different places and put it all in one place. The problem with some of this data is it's all from different times. So you have one report that is using kind of 2015 data, some that's using 2018 data. The mass.gov employment stuff I got is 2019 data, and then the stuff off Zillow, like what something costs right now, is right now. So yeah, I was kind of saying, I think I said this to Maren, it's not exactly apples and oranges, but it's kind of, Granny Smith versus Cortland kind of stuff. So just understand that a lot of this stuff is kind of ballpark, or just to get an idea of percentages and kind of where you're headed kind of thing. It's not exact. So for instance, when you're using 2018 data that shows mean incomes and things like that, but then you're looking at the past 12 months of Zillow sales data, they're not exactly going to
Right.
mesh.
There's a year or 2 discrepancy there.
Yeah, and so it's just that you're looking at, it's not, obviously the salaries have gone up and housing prices have gone up probably higher than
Right.
salaries. So stuff like that. I actually would like to say one thing about your emergency rental assistance. One of the things that I did was I sent out things to Pondside and Mill Pond and stuff like that, not Mill Pond, Littleton Green and stuff, asking what their rent rolls were, that kind of thing. And I got something back from the woman at Pondside that said, because I also asked, how are your tenants doing? And she said a lot of the tenants at Pondside are behind in their rents, and many of them are getting raffed, but I don't know if they all are, and I don't know if that has run out for them. So I heard that you only had 2 people applying, but then I hear that there are a number of tenants behind at Pondside. So I'm wondering if you guys kind of want to do another blitz of the developments and just make sure people are aware of your rental program, the COVID rental program.
All right. I dropped a flyer off describing the program when we were starting it.
Yeah.
I mean, I put it in the rent slot at Pondside.
Yeah.
And I talked to 2 people about it over there. But
yeah, I'm just letting you know what I heard. And also I've been on a number of different things. There's a big conference going on these 2 weeks that's nationwide, because it can be now that with Zoom, and just across the board, people are hearing from people looking for help that don't even know about the CARES Act, don't know, they just aren't getting the information for whatever reason. So it's got nothing to do with what you're doing or not doing. You just have to do it over and over and over and over.
okay. Well, I think some more outreach then would be in order with these. I've driven onto I think it's the Littleton Green campus, and there's no office there that's occupied. It's very hard to find anybody to talk to.
Yeah.
So anyhow. All right, well, this is a lot of information, and it is sort of points that make kind of a picture, but it's not like a line drawing where you can see all of it.
No. So what I tried to do, so that I think did I send you the summary packet, or did I only I can't remember. Did I only send the responses?
Well, I sent an email at 5:30 that included everything for tonight's meeting. I understand that was late. I can share the cover if you want.
Was there something called summary of various reports and data, or was it only ones that were called response?
Hang on.
All I have is.
I don't see a summary in that
Yeah, I don't
email
either.
that you sent.
I don't.
Mary.
I printed out the responses and there was a cover sheet for that, but that didn't have much information on it, so I didn't print the.
All right.
Yeah.
And I neglected to send the summary, which was a different, I'm sending that right now to Maren. So the summary one was literally just that. It was the so I looked at the Municipal Housing Trust packet that was drafted in 2020, which summarized housing information available from the master plan, the HPP, Littleton Needs Assessment, and the 2 housing visioning plans for Common and Station Village. And so I looked at that piece, but I also looked at some other specific things that Cindy had given me, which referenced the Donahue Institute projections. And then I also looked at the needs assessment and the visioning plan. I looked at something called Municipal Housing Trust that I think was, I'm not sure who drafted that document. And then there was something from the Council on Aging. And then I also went to Datatown and Data Common, which a lot of the stuff from the UMass Needs Assessment and the Station Village Plan used as well. But there were some things that they had some graphs. Yeah, that's the summary. There were some things that they had some graphs, and I liked the data from the graphs, but I didn't like the graphs. Like I wanted the data, but I wanted them in different graphs. So that's where you'll see graphs that are not pulled in from Datatown or pulled in from these reports. They're graphs that I actually made, but it's the same data. I just wanted to look at something different than what they made the graph from, but it's all from the same 2014, 2018 ACS tables. So this summary is, like I said, exactly that. And basically it's showing the first 2 graphs there show that the projections from both the needs assessment and the station report, both of which use the Donahue Institute, are just showing that your age group 60 plus is just gonna grow. And then I just made some pie graphs, if you want to scroll down, Maren, that I just thought really showed it pretty graphically, if you excuse that. But it's pretty dramatic if you look at the size of the green, just from 2010 to 2030. And then the next page, Maren, I just did the same thing. It's just more graphs talking about the heads of household. So the first one was just population. The next one is heads of household, and you can see the projected heads of household. Not only do the 60 plus heads of household, and that means people who are, own the place or are renting the place, grows pretty dramatically. But also, really importantly, is that group from 45 to 59 shrinks as a percentage. And what that kind of has been looked at is there's just no place for them to move. These are people who have children who want houses, and a lot of these seniors are living in the houses they raised their family in, and they're still there. So that's kind of showing that graph. Then with the senior demographics, and again, this is all in stuff you guys have. I just kind of synthesized it and put it into this one thing. But so down, if you scroll down the senior demographics, it shows that nearly a quarter of the single family homes are owned by somebody 65 and over, and they likely have empty bedrooms. And there was a report done, I think I get to that later. I'll get to that later. So then the next page shows that 43% of the 65 plus households, and again, this is using the 2018 data, were making less than $40,000. And so about half of your seniors' households are earning less than 80% of the AMI. And I think it's almost 45% are earning less than 50% AMI. And I forget the number, but it was like, it might be that 14%. It's a little bit more than that, are making the extremely low, less than 30%. And then if you scroll down, that little chart there that I took from, I think, the needs assessment shows the number of people who are living alone. And so that survey had found that 30% of Littleton seniors live alone, and 65% of them own their homes. So they're living alone in these big houses, most likely big houses, because there was, well, there's a report, but I guess I get to that later. And then if you scroll down, I just found this one to be a little bit interesting. If you look at the graph on the right-hand side, that's the percentage of men to women in different age brackets. So as everybody ages, the percentage of women in each age group grows dramatically. And when you put that with the slide next to it, which was taken from the needs assessment, men 65 living alone make a little bit more than women 65 living 65 alone. And so, when you see householders 65 when they're not living alone, they're making double. Their household is double what somebody living alone is making. And, that's possibly because two people living together over 65, possibly both are getting Social Security. And when they're living alone, it's only one Social Security or one retirement. But just in addition to that, women are making 9% less than the men. So when you have a larger group of women living longer, which is just kind of, I think everybody's always heard that women tend to live longer than men, they're living longer at less of an earnings every year. So that's just something I think to keep in mind. Then as you go to the senior independence, you see that there were surveys done in the needs assessment in the station. And the census data in the 2013 data was showing that 21% of Littleton people aged 65 to 74 and 40% 75 plus experienced at least one disability that could, affect their day-to-day. And the survey results kind of showed the same thing. And so they did this survey that says, if you had to move somewhere else, where would you like to move? And, obviously you can see the younger people were saying, well, single family home or apartment, but the older they were like, well, independent living wouldn't be bad. Well, assisted living wouldn't be bad. So this is kind of just an informal, but a survey that shows this is something that people are thinking about. And as your population is growing, you're only going to get more and more people on that end. So then in the unbalanced housing stock portion where I talk about this, the Station Village plan found that 93% of your stock is single family homes. And that in the past 18 years, 656 permits were made for single family units and were given, and 197 were granted for multifamily units. 144 of those were at Village Green. And your stock is older. Half of it was built before 1950. And the number of rooms, the 2, 3, 4 room units are smaller. So you're really looking at things that are 3 bedrooms and up. And this is the report that I read called Crowded in, Locked Out, Crowded in, Priced Out, something like that. I have it written down, but I can't read it. That found that across the metro region, empty nesters are staying in family-sized units long after they need all the bedrooms, and ownership units are much more likely than rental units to have empty bedrooms. And in the Globe West region, which Littleton is part of, 3+ bedrooms make up 2/3 of the housing stock, and it's more, I think, in Littleton. And nearly half of the 3+ bedroom or owner-occupied units are headed by somebody 55 and up, and nearly 16% of somebody 70 years of older. And so that report just kind of bolstered the senior sell-off's just not happening, and that's one of the things that you guys are concerned about. Right. And so that very first graph that shows a lot of householders, the percentage of householders 60 and up are growing, and the percentage of householders 45 to 59 is shrinking because they have no place to buy. They're looking for a house and there's no place to buy. So that's basically what this summary is. It's a lot more graphs than it is text. So it really doesn't take that long to read. It just looks like it does. But then answering your specific questions, that first packet is really long, but the answers are just 1 page. The rest are all the stuff that I did to back it up. And then all the other ones are 1 or 2 pages long. So, if you don't want to read through all the graphs on that first one, my responses from what I see in the data is just all in that first page. And so I used some of those answers, and I used what I found in the summary to create that who needs housing in Littleton, which I had silhouettes, but Jen didn't like silhouettes. She wanted real people. So she redid it a little bit today, and now you have real people in the pictures. And that was basically, it's a draft. It's a thing that we were thinking might be something you guys would want to use to pull out specific facts, specific data, specific points that you want to make, and use a pretend real person. And so what we did on that, and that was the Who Needs Housing in Littleton draft. We just picked out some people. So the first person we picked out was John. He works, and because one of the questions you guys had given me was, if somebody works in Littleton, can they afford to live in Littleton? And honestly, looking at some of the mass.gov labor information, it's kind of hard if they're not two incomes, and maybe even if they are. And, so I'm just using some data from 2019 from mass.gov averages. I actually tried to look up and find if I could find out some salaries in your town for teachers, police. I couldn't find anything. I saw a listing that was about 2 years old for police. I saw some recent things for custodians in the parks department and stuff like that. But I figured I would use the averages that I got from mass.gov. But if you guys wanted to do something like this and specifically say, this is what a policeman makes when they just start working, or this is what a policeman at 5 years in makes, or this is what a teacher's starting salary is, and you can get that current information, you can put that into. So what we did was we put in, our first guy is John. He works in the retail trade, and the average salary based on this mass.gov information is $35,000, almost $36,000 a year. That puts him in the 50% AMI household for somebody making, in a single person. You don't have anything that I can find in Littleton that would be available to somebody making 50% AMI who is not an elder, is not a senior. So that's a piece of information. If this is the type of housing you're looking for, which I think you are talking about, making age-friendly but not senior design, like for somebody who is non-elderly but making below 80% or 50%, that might be something you're interested in building. This is the guy who would want it. And then I just put in the data that, according to mass.gov, 1,300 people work in the retail in Littleton. This is the average salary. Over 3,000 people work in trades in Littleton for which the average salary is less than 80% AMI. And there's really no place for them to go. I'm sorry, 80%, you do have some 80% that are non-elderly, but you have no 50% that are non-elderly. Then if you scroll down, our next woman is Alice. She was a homemaker. She's on Social Security. She makes the annual income, which I pulled out as the median single woman, 65, living alone, 18,500. And we're saying she lives in her house, and it's the house she raised her family in, but her family's gone, but she still lives there. She doesn't need all the bedrooms. And now the house is starting to get too big and the stairs are a problem. So she's going to be looking for something that's disability friendly. She doesn't have disabilities, but the stairs are starting to get to be a problem. And she foresees there's going to be disabilities. And based on those surveys and projections, we can assume that that if the percentages stay the same, they may or may not, that 30% of the seniors live alone, 65% own their own home. She's one of them. That 50% of the seniors are considered low income and would be eligible for low income housing. She's one of them. And that the populations project that if you take the population projections and you use those percentages, which of course is now really kind of stretching the science, the math, but if you just go straight with the projections and the percentages, as many as 900 seniors by 2030 are likely to need disability friendly housing. And if you take half of them are going to be low income, they're going to need affordable disability housing. So what I haven't read is just, these are things that I couldn't find out. I found some articles that talked about things, but this seems like an easy thing for you guys to find out. Of the senior developments, do they have elevators? How many apartments are on the ground floor? Are any of them accessible, wheelchair accessible? I know there's one at Pondside that there's a 1-bedroom affordable and accessible unit, and I know that because it's in the regulatory agreement. But for the other senior developments, they don't have the regulatory agreements that I can look through like that. But that seems like an easy either survey or just go out to the property And then the other two that we did was household headed by a single parent. You guys have about 19% of them out there. Most of them are women, but we pulled a guy. And so he doesn't want to buy a house yet. He wants to save some money and rent. So he's looking for a 3-bedroom apartment for him and his kids. And there really aren't that many affordable anyway. Now, but I don't know any of the details of things that are not affordable because I really only deal with your affordable units. So what I'm saying is, this guy works for construction. He actually makes a pretty good salary and he can afford the rental units. It's just, how many 3-bedroom rental units do you have? And so that's a question we have to answer because, you don't have that many affordable ones, but I don't know how many market rate ones you have. And then the last one, we thought, all right, now here's a family who's going to want to buy that starter home, which you had asked, how many people can afford a starter home? And so I'm saying we've got a 2-income family. Lisa does not work in town. She works outside. She has to travel. She's a nurse, but her husband works in the education field in town. And using the average salaries for the nurses in Littleton and education in Littleton, they make approximately $90,000. Still not enough to purchase a medium home. Also not enough to afford a median or a 3-bedroom home. But they would be able to afford the 2-bedroom, assuming they could put 20% down. And I'll tell you about that one in a second, my assumption there. But there are very few 2-bedrooms to homes to buy that are not condos, and even condos, I'm not sure how many there are, but of the last 130 single family homes sold, and that's through Zillow, only 19 were 2-bedrooms. So they're just, you guys are very 3+ bedroom heavy. And then the average selling price for a 3-bedroom was $500,000 last year. The average selling price for a 2-bedroom was $406,000. And the way I figured out how much income you would need for one of these, for a house, is I use the DHCD calculator that we use to figure out the other way, what the price of a house should be to keep somebody at 80% or 70% or whatever it is, paying no more than 30% of their income. So I did it the other way, but the calculator, DHCD calculator, assumes that people are putting 5% down on their house, in which case they're going to need private mortgage insurance. So I did that because I figured if we're looking at somebody who is just scraping by or just about to buy their first house or something like that, they may not have enough money to put down and to not get private mortgage insurance. So I assumed, when I was saying how much you need to buy a house, I assumed a 5% mortgage, 5% down on your mortgage, and then the private mortgage insurance. And then I did a second calculation, assuming people had the 20% to put down and didn't need the private mortgage insurance. Now there's lots and lots of different products out there, and they don't all, those are not the only two, 5% with the insurance, 20% no insurance. There's all different kinds. So I couldn't do all those, and I didn't, but those were just the two I picked. And there are plenty of first-time homebuyer programs out there that help with down payment. I didn't go into any of that. I just kind of did a straight calculation, again, just to kind of give a ballpark of how much something would cost. So that was this Who Needs Housing in Littleton was what Jennifer had suggested. Is that something you guys would want as kind of a demand sheet, something to bring around? And so that's what the draft is. It doesn't have to, those aren't the people we have to focus on. Those are not the facts. You might want different facts about, how many, if you want to know how many people are going to need accessible units or something, it would probably take a survey and stuff like that. But you have all the data and stuff that I gave you and the other ones to pull out. If you say, oh, this is what we want to focus on, then you just find a different fake real person.
Wow. Thank you.
That's great.
Yeah, there's a lot of information there, and it's not looking like an easy problem to solve.
No, that's why I think what you have to do is pick the things that you guys want to focus on. I think we talked about this when you were first looking at the 5-year plan. Pick what you want to focus on and focus on it, because I think you can focus on all of it. Everybody, there's just not enough housing in general. But I think just from what I was, just from the data and what you guys were talking about, I did have a couple of ideas. That the first one is, I think you just need more rentals in general. You have under 15% of your units are rental, and a third of those are just, it looks like anyway, just got by going by the assessor's data to be single family houses that people are renting out. So, you know, of the 300 market rate units that are available, I think only 200 of them are actually apartments, and 160 or something like that are in, or maybe 100 and, I forget the number, it's in there, are in the developments. And then there are a number that are in much smaller buildings, you know, 4-unit buildings. So I think more rental units in general. And if you're looking at the age-friendly design where you're not focused only on seniors, then I think that opens up to, you know, this guy who works in town who doesn't make enough to rent what you have available now. Elevators are going to be important because I don't think those other elderly developments have elevators. I'm not sure about that. But your vacancy rate, which is something I talk about in here, is very low. Just based on what I see, it's like at 4%. It was, I think, in the RKG report from the beginning of the year, I think it was 7% and 9% in 2 different buildings. You know, but looking at what's available just on Zillow, it was, I think there were 5 or 7 completely total available, and 1 was affordable. And then if you're looking at affordable, you definitely want some 80%, but it looks like you might want 60 or 50 or 30% units for people who are not elderly, because the only ones that you have that are like that, or that only Section 8 project based that would only be literally 30% of your income, are elderly, or a couple of family housing authority ones. So that might be where you want to focus instead of saying, you know, the 80%. You might want to focus on the 50%. If you're looking at people who live and work in Littleton. And then I'm just looking at my notes. And then 3-bedroom rental units, but this is kind of the other end of the spectrum. So you're either going to be looking at the small units where people can downsize to, or people can start out, or the 3-bedroom rental units, because that crowded in priced out was talking about the fact that 3-bedroom units that are rental tend not to have empty bedrooms versus 3-bedroom family. But if you're also want to focus on kind of that senior sell-off to open up those 3-bedrooms, homes that are right now being housed by people, by people who've lived there their whole lives, and they're now in there by themselves. Another thing from that report was talking about that's really probably where most of the 3+ bedrooms are going to come from in the near future, because 3+ bedrooms are so expensive to make that really what we want to do is turn over the ones that already exist by giving the people who live in them other places to go. So, you know, you've got a lot of stuff going on there. So I think what you just want to do is focus on 1 or 2 things. And I think that's way back from the beginning. You guys were talking about age-friendly design, not just senior, but senior-friendly, but also, you know, inexpensive enough that somebody just starting out could also live there. And so I think that's a good place to focus on the age-friendly design with elevators, and then affordable, maybe more deeply affordable than 80%.
Well, I have to say I agree with that mostly. I mean, I think that family housing is an issue, and I think the elderly is an issue, and I think I don't know if we can, you know, do both, or we have to pick one to start off with. That was part of the purpose of that spreadsheet that I made, is just to, you know, get us to focus on the different size units and the different percentages of AMI that we're dealing with. So, I mean, that was really the only purpose of that spreadsheet, is just to start a discussion.
Well, one of the things that I noticed too was when I looked at the fair market rents from HUD and the mass housing affordable rents and stuff like that, your market rate rents are under, I believe, the fair market rents, which, you know, is on the one hand, well, good, you're affordable, you know, technically. but yet your vacancy rate is so small and you have so few apartments that it doesn't, that's not the problem. The problem is you just need more units that are under that 80%, because your market rate units are under 80%, but people are making under 50%. So, you know, even though your market rate units might technically be, quote, affordable, they're not if people can't afford to live in them.
Right.
So that's another reason that I think you might want to look at the more deeply affordable than 80%.
I was, excuse me, I was interested in the example of the person making 36,000 a year. And then one of the other data points I saw in your one of your responses was there was a house that, according to Zillow, sold in town for $115,000, which boggles my mind. I can't. I'm sure it's happened. I believe Zillow, but
I think that was a 1-bedroom.
Down in the lake, maybe around by the lake,
Right.
probably with like a septic system that has to be pumped quarterly, something like that. At any rate, my impression was that the average price, the median price, was so high, much higher than the data in that sheet, that I think the problem of 50% or 80% or even 100% is out of reach, because there's just no stock of things that inexpensive here.
Well, that's why if you're looking at what you want to develop, I think you would want to get some developments that have 50% in them. And yeah, that median house price number, that 446,000 or whatever that one is, that's from 2018. But if you look at, which I think I also have in here, Zillow, if you look at the current Zillow one, it's more like 510. So, again, that's where the data is kind of apples and oranges. So if you look through the Zillow data stuff, you'll see what they consider to be the median, not average, I think median selling, and I think it was like 510, which is probably more accurate, than 2018.
This is really great, Nancy. Thank you for your hard work on this.
You're welcome.
This is really, I think, something that we've needed for a long time. Across the board, with not just the Affordable Housing Trust, but the other boards in town as well, planning board, select board. We need this in our community. I think it's pretty, I don't think personally it's as complicated as we think that it is. Really, I think we just need to build the type of housing that we need for our community. And really, I think the good piece that we've discovered through this process is that you can have the same type of housing that will benefit a senior, but it'll also benefit, a single individual, a young family, so to speak, someone that's divorced. So to me, we can build the same type of housing units and benefit two demographics. But at the same time, I think the biggest thing is, and you mentioned it, is we need the senior sell-off. And that's been holding us back for a long time in this town for many reasons. So if we can get, a few developments that can meet the needs of both the senior population and the younger population, and institute or start implementing or seeing that senior sell-off, I think it will start this whole cycle going. And the other thing too, as far as the affordability component, that is so relevant. Housing and development in Littleton, who needs what? Because I don't think people realize, I was just somewhere last night and there's a young couple in Littleton, and they're moving out, and they've lived in Littleton their whole lives, and they're having a baby, and he's a landscaper and she's a waitress. They can't afford to live here. And so that's really sad, that we don't have the housing, but we need housing for those age groups, but we also need it for our seniors as well. So that we can start the senior sell-off. So I think definitely with what you've provided to us, we can certainly work and come up with something, to help guide developers and see how we can use the Affordable Housing Trust to benefit, to get to that, what we were saying, 60%, 50% AMI, which is certainly needed as well. So I just thank you for your work on this. This is something we can definitely work with and that we've needed. So I appreciate it.
There are some things in there that are in red, and those are ones that I was like, not sure what the answer is, or some that would take a survey, that kind of thing. So,
Right. And the other thing too, you had said you did about as far as salaries go for police officers and those things, that's in our annual town report for teacher salaries. All of that information is there.
Okay.
So we as a board can access that
okay.
and have that. Yeah, that's a published report we put out every year.
Yeah. So what you might want to do with this draft thing that Jen and I put together, you guys can play with it and decide, this is not the person we want to focus on. We want to focus on this person, or we want
Right.
and use actual data rather than average data from 2019. That might be more relevant. I mean,
Right. I think that, the bottom line is it's never going to be an exact, I don't want to call it exact science, but if we're in the ballpark enough to make a educated decision and provide educated guidance to developers and to other boards, I think then we've succeeded, because it is hard. It's like a moving target, right? I mean, the market fluctuates and, jobs fluctuate, incomes, and it's hard to get it down to exact science.
and I think one of the things you probably want to focus on, there's a section in the RKG report, the station report, where she talks about, there's a dearth of opportunity for people 18 to 35 or something like that to find something. And so and she said that speaks to the lack of options for them. I think that one's a really key one if you want to focus on that. But then also on the graph, on the summary, that one of the households, to me, the reason I did the pie graph was because I just thought that was so dramatic to show, look how big the percentage of 60 plus is, and look how much smaller the percentage of 45 to 59. Those are the people with kids.
Right.
I mean, they're not necessarily little kids, but the kids that you're like, okay, we want to do our second house. We did our starter house, or we lived in the apartment. Now we want to buy, and we can't. There's nothing to buy, or we can't afford it.
Right.
And so those are the two arguments. Either I can't afford it, or nobody's leaving. The seniors aren't leaving.
Right.
The one thing you have to worry about is you're going to get pushback from people who want to sell their house high. They want to downsize, but they don't want the housing prices to go down.
Right.
So that's always something you're going to fight with.
Right. So, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks.
All right. Thank you. So, Maureen, you know where to find me.
Absolutely.
Good night.
Good night. Thank you. All right. Okay. That's a big update. Now, Mr. Fields, do you want to talk to us? This is something about the very small units.
Am I unmuted?
You're unmuted.
Now you're unmuted.
Hi, thank you for having me. Matthew Field. I had talked to Cindy earlier about a project that we wanted to propose to the town. We've done, as I believe most people here know, 3 senior residential developments, and they just haven't worked out for the seniors in Littleton. And we have another site that Cindy knows well, and I have no problem discussing the location. We have a letter of intent with the owners of Minuteman Campground, and we would like to talk about building smaller homes, 650 to 800 square feet, 100 of them. The location has a pool, a clubhouse, a store, town water, and we'd be able to produce those homes at $300,000 apiece.
Wow.
Like a tiny home community, something like Summer Village or something like that.
Very similar to Summer Home Village.
Year round, right?
Year round.
What about septic?
We would there's a septic in there already, but we would put a new sewer treatment plant in.
100 units, you said?
Mm-hmm. There's 100 approved sites there now.
Would they be in like standalone or townhouses?
Standalone.
Hmm.
So the campers, if I don't know how many people are familiar with the site. If you drove up there, which I don't think you can now, it's closed down. The campers that are up there, today's campers are 40 feet long, 12 feet wide with bump outs on each side. They're gargantuan. And there's 19 acres up there. Already tiny houses out there or smaller homes out there. We'd make them all ADA compliant. They would have, as the same as Weber, zero entrance. It'd be a nice community that you'd be able to, I think, satisfy a lot of the needs that you're talking about just prior to this.
Well, 100 units would make a big difference. I'm not sure I understand. Is it a regulatory thing that you're doing freestanding instead of townhouses? Because it would seem to be more efficient to build a bigger building with more units in it.
What we're trying to do, I own the real estate office in town, and Myron has called me in the past, and we've gone over numbers of Littleton residents that have purchased the homes that we've built in the senior development. And out of the 3 senior developments, and I was trying to count today, I think there are 2 market rate on White Street, 2 affordable, 0 at Cooper, and 0 at Weber of Littleton residents. And Weber is sold out.
Wow.
So
is that
the problem is we
issue?
have seniors that come to our office regularly and talk to us about our project.
Yeah.
They can't, just as I believe her name was Nancy, just prior to this, and Mark knows this, Cindy knows this, the people, they can't even make a lateral move into a unit in Littleton. And trying to have somebody help out with the landscaping, the plowing, the mowing, the shoveling, all of those items. They can't even do a lateral move because the costs that we were doing down on Weber, they're at $500,000 a piece. And they're greater than that up on Cooper. So what we intended to do down on Weber, which didn't work out, was more units, higher density, which would drive down the price. Because the land and the infrastructure are staggering. And I believe, Mark, with your knowledge of construction, you understand that, know that.
Yes, absolutely. That's the driving force right now, what you have to pay for land.
The land is that we're talking about is millions upon millions. And the infrastructure, the sewer treatment plant and what we did down at Weber is $1 million. You know, it's over $1 million there. So you add all of those things up, the only thing that can offset it is density. What we'd like to do is get together with the town, this group, the selectmen, and put pen to paper and have some kind of host agreement so we can know what we're getting into and what the town will end up with for a price as well. And I have my engineer online here, Greg Roy, that can answer any technical questions you have as well.
So you think, Matt, around 300 for the price point?
Yep.
I mean, to me, that's interesting because we've had many conversations over the past year or so saying it would be great if we could just get a development that falls within that price range or close to it universally. Instead of, you know, like you said, you've got the $500,000 units or the 600, you know, high fives, and then you have 2 that are like down to 275. It would be great if we could find that balance.
Yep.
I like this idea personally. I looked up Summer Village in Westford, and it's really neat, a unique community. And I know through Littleton Station, working on that project, that there was some discussion about, you know, the tiny home villages they call them. But I think it could meet the a varying demographic in our town, especially after just seeing the report that Nancy provided to us. So to me, it's an interesting project.
It is. The layouts of the units are really, did you look at the layouts of the units up there on Summer Villages?
I did, yeah.
There's a lot of developments that are around. Acton's done it, Westford's done it on 2 different locations. Down there by 495, down by Burton's, right over there on the other side of 495 is one of them. Gardner's got a wonderful project up there doing it now.
Really?
They're really nice. They're open concept. They're 1 bathroom, bedroom, a den, and they range from 640 to 800 square feet. They're really cute. They're well built. We would make them Energy Star just as we do with the homes that we build now. They fit. Greg has a layout, plot plan of the site showing the 100 locations that we can get to you later on down the road if it's something you want to investigate. I don't want to drag the seller out, and I don't want to spend a ton of money on engineering and attorneys if it's not something the town wants.
I mean, my initial reaction is it certainly checks a lot of the boxes we've been talking about. It's absolutely a stock that we don't have any of, really, except for a few little, converted camps that are now single, ranches by the lake.
Yeah.
Would it be age restricted or not?
No, we would want to do something just as Nancy said, where there's a portion of it age restriction and a portion of it open to. We run into a tremendous amount of single mothers that come through our door at the real estate office. But what I wanted to ask Myron was, is there a way to give preference to Littleton people first without discrimination?
Some of that's going to depend on what the permitting process looks like.
Yep.
If it's done through a 40 friendly B process, then up to 70% of the units can have Littleton preference, local preference, which means Littleton resident. Pardon?
I wouldn't tie my hands up for too long. I mean, like we did with the prior marketing on Weber, which was fine and it worked out. I would like to give preference to I know of a firefighter now looking for a place that can't afford it in town. It's a shame.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we just did Hager at 70% affordable, so there should be no reason why we couldn't do yours.
Yeah, but we wouldn't be able to do it, Mark, if we were, the problem, you know this in construction right now, from the time in January till now, from the first frame that we did on Weber till the last frame we're completing this week. Materials, the frame, materials, roofing, siding, everything, windows, literally doubled in price right now. So I would have no problem entering into a host agreement with the town, depicting the price, but the affordability aspect that we, under the numbers that we have right now, we wouldn't be able to do more than 10%. And 10 units out of 100 affordable would be great.
Mark, at 70% with the affordability at Hager, what is that price point?
No, 40% was affordable at Hager. 70% was set aside for Littleton residents.
Okay, yeah, local preference. That's what I thought you were referring to when you said that to Matt. Yeah.
Okay, then I misunderstood. Thank you.
Yeah.
70% local residents, local initiative.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, Matt, I think I'm not clear on something. You're talking about selling these units. This is all for sale?
It's up to an agreement we come with through the town. I mean, if we want to have a portion of them, rental, we'd entertain it. But I own a lot of rentals, and I'm tired.
Yeah.
But someone could buy a unit and rent it.
They're more than welcome to do that. But
No, I mean, I know rental is a difficult business, but I mean, that was, you know, what I took away from Nancy's presentation earlier is that the Littleton needs more rental units than it has. And this is adding a lot of units, and I was wondering if we could, you know, get some of them or all of them.
Or buy some from us and rent them.
Could be an investment package, sure. That's an option, way of looking at it as well.
Right.
You know, we could build, instead of being 10% affordable, we could build, you know, 10% at cost for the town. Whoever I'm going to negotiate with, I negotiate with, but.
Mhm.
Well, obviously, it's a very interesting idea, especially the price point.
Yeah, because we, you know, as we started down on Weber, we had double the numbers, which would have allowed us to keep it lower, and it didn't work out, which, whatever, I understand. And it drove the price up. The infrastructure and the cost of land, cost of dirt. That's where we are. Does anybody have any technical questions for Greg on the layout or how it would work? Or
Well, do you have a unit floor plan?
I don't right now. I've requested it from David, and I'm having a hard time getting it out of the town hall of Westford right now. But his lumberman is my lumberman, and he's going to get me a copy of it on Monday.
Okay.
How you doing, Angus?
Very well, thank you. I trust you and your family are doing well. Happy COVID days.
His microphone's a little screwed up.
Yeah,
Oh,
Yeah, we have to deal with that every month with Angus.
right.
yeah.
So, I mean, it sounds to me like overall, the Housing Trust Board's interested in the project or certainly wants to have further discussions about it.
Cindy, would we work with you and the selectmen? I talked to Chuck about this. He guessed where it was and everything. He knew all about it.
Oh, he did?
Yeah. So would we have a member from, say, your board, Mark, Myron, or somebody else that we would talk to and get going on so I can, the seller needs to know sooner rather than later. We have the funds available to buy it.
Mm-hmm.
I guess they're tired of the campground or they want to retire. So we'd have to let them know sooner rather than later.
Okay.
But I would like to get something firmed up, and I know it's going to take a little while, but.
Why don't Cindy and I talk and we'll set up a meeting with you guys
Yep.
maybe next week or so and at least get a preliminary idea what we're all talking about.
Yeah, I can have floor plans and a sketch of a layout by Greg on it. And the really neat thing about it is the layout of the roads and the layout of the lots, because these are smaller homes, fit on the campsites the roads are already in. We'll have to absolutely redo the roads and put it's Getty line water everywhere, Mark. So we'd have to put in a water line, hydrants, underground electric, and a sewer. But a lot of the layout is pretty good. So you can get a good idea of what it's going to look like when we're done.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's do that. We'll set up something next week and see where to go from there.
I'd like to join that meeting if I could.
Sure? Yeah, absolutely.
For the affordable, you and I will be planning selectmen and we'll bring Bartlett.
Perfect.
I think Mark, we've gone down this road with coming in with subdivision layouts prior to anybody knowing, and I'm tired of that. I'd rather know up front what I'm getting into.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah.
I like your price point.
Yeah.
Matt, can people walk on that site?
I will talk to the owners, and next week we'll set something up.
Yeah, I think I drove through it once 20 years ago, but that's not sufficient to form an opinion.
It has a beautiful pool, has a beautiful big meeting room. It has a couple of little cottages, 3 or 4 cottages and a store that can all be used as part of the neighborhood. You know, maybe a little senior center there, or
Yeah.
they're nice buildings, and it's pretty.
Yeah, my family used to go there every summer for a week, and it is nice.
Yeah.
And I think there's more than 3 or 4 cabins. There are a bunch of little cabins up there, but you're not going to keep those.
Well, no, we'll have to remove those.
Yeah.
Well, I thank everybody for their time and encouragement on this.
Well, thank you. I think it's a great idea, and I think we'll have to discuss it and see if we can make it work one way or another.
All right. I'm in.
All right.
All right, great.
Thank you for inviting
Thank
me.
you.
You're welcome. Thanks, Matt.
We appreciate it.
Everybody, good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Okay. All right. What's next on the agenda? We want to discuss goals. Do we want to go through member updates? Are there any member updates?
Well, I can update you on the Hager Homestead. How about that? I'll kill 2 birds with 1 stone.
Excellent. I like that.
So we finally got through the permitting process with Hager, the planning board did. And I'm happy to announce that we got 40% affordable out of at the Hager Homestead. I met with Bruce, and we kind of had a meeting of the minds of what it would take to get that project through. Planning board we got them to propose 40% from 60% AMI all the way up to 150. That's 10 units. The planning board approved it at our last meeting. And so we're going to have 24 units out there, 40% of them, 10 of them going to be at an affordable rate. And 70% of those are going to be we're going to try to set aside for Littleton, first come, first served Littleton residents. So I think we did a good job with getting a project that had a bunch of issues. We kind of got through most of it, and we got the affordability down to I think something. We asked for input from the Council on Aging, and they came back with they were looking for 40%, and we got the developer to come up with 40%. So I think it was a win-win for the town and for the developer. So I think it worked out well.
So is that 1 or 2 units at each level?
I think on the lower tier, it's mostly the 1-bedrooms.
Yeah.
And then as you get up to the bigger tiers, you get a couple of the freestanding and a couple of the 2 and 3 2-bedrooms. But I forget the exact disbursement of it. But to get them to the cheaper level, we conceded and gave them mostly the 1-bedroom units for the lower tier. But there are some 2s in there.
Well,
That's great.
And planning also resolved the design issues?
Yeah, actually what they're going to do now, they turn the building sideways. So the footprint of the building is not much different than what you see now. It's going to go further back into the property. So the vistas will be, I would say 90% of what's there now. The house way over to the right is still going to be there. The barn will be gone, but there'll be a building between the house and where the barn is. So it's almost going to look the same, and there'll still be the open areas where you can see through, and the fence on the far left-hand side will be gone, and that vista will be restored back. I guess they're going to take there's a pool over there. The pool, I guess is going, and so you'll be able to have the vistas. There'll be the 15 acres of the 13 acres of open space will all be preserved. It's going to be in a home ownership, but open to the public for the walking trails and the connectivity between town-owned property and Castle in the Clouds. So that will all be preserved. Oh, and all the way to the high school too, as well. I mean, to the middle school that's there as well.
All right, great.
So yeah, so it was actually the board for the planning board. I think we're all pretty much pleased that they did listen to us. They did hear where we're coming from, and it ultimately we got I think a good deal for both sides in this one. So it's something I think Littleton will be proud of.
Well, good. I mean, it's a great project, and I like the idea of having some affordable units there, and I like the idea of it maintaining some of the landscape. So I think, thank you for getting those concessions and
I'm just
working out.
happy we got it up to 40%. We got it up to a number, and the AMI down to a number that I'm not saying a lot of Littleton residents, but at least some of them hopefully will be able to
Yeah.
buy into that, and at least it's a start.
Great.
That's great.
So that's where we're at with Hager.
All right. Well, that's the last one on the list. Working backwards, do we have an update on the Durkee farm estates? The Durkee house? I don't know. I know that I talked to I sat in for a few minutes of the historical commission meeting last week or the week before, and they have some interest in that house, and they were very interested in what the Housing Trust has in mind for it, which is pretty vague. But so there was a discussion and a lot of unknowns there.
I mean, from a planning board standpoint, we're still working on the disposition of the house, spring to wherever we decide to put want it. If the Housing Trust wants to try to put some sort of units out there, I'm sure the planning board is not opposed to that. I know Mr. Guthrie wants to get it off his plate sometime in the spring once he's done through the winter season with storage and everything else there. So if we're thinking of putting some housing on there, I think we need to at least assess the potential of
Right.
where we should be going with that.
Mark, do you know anything about the barn there?
Well, that's what I know we have the house, but we also have the barn and the 5 acres that goes with the barn.
Right.
Barn, it's structurally, I guess, is sound. It's a question of whether you could build units in it, or if you'd want to add on to it and try to get a few more units there. Maybe we should spend a few bucks and get somebody out there to try to see what we can design out there, and at least get a rough idea of what we're looking at out there.
That was where the historical commission and I ended up, is that we needed to get somebody out there to look at it.
Yeah.
The house is, I think, more important historically than the barn is.
And I think the house needs a lot of work out there, so maybe we leave the house as is, but see if we can get 4 or 5, who knows how many units, at least a couple of units out there between the barn and the land around the barn to try to get some affordable units out there.
Right.
So we should probably get somebody out there to give us an assessment of it. If not now, maybe in the spring or before we actually take possession of it, so we have a rough idea where we're looking at. Because Mr. Guthrie is still not opposed to doing a septic out there, right, Myron? Isn't that the last piece?
Correct.
Doing a septic system out there. So maybe we get rid of the septic for the house and put something on for the barn if we can get multiple units in that general area. And take Mr. Guthrie up on his offer to at least build a septic system for us.
So who do you think we should use to take a look at the property? Maren, do you have any suggestions in that regard?
A couple weeks ago, Joe had sent around information on a grant from Mass Development that might be able to do that, and they often have consultants on call.
Okay.
We want to try to use somebody we use all the time. maybe could give us a bargain basement deal on it since we're giving them so much business. My thought is Green Engineering, since they do so much for the town as it is. This is with kind of a nonprofit, aren't we? It'd be nice.
We're a nonprofit, the
Yeah,
trust
it'd be
is,
nice to
yeah.
ask them, at least give us a rough idea. Maybe they could see it in their heart to at least give us a cursory look at it. You know me, I like everything for free.
There you go.
No, I'm fine with
Yeah.
that. I'm open to anything.
Right. Just finding a description of what it is we're asking for would help us get started on it.
Right.
How about a feasibility study of what we could approximately think we could put out there?
Starting with the barn.
Starting with the barn. Maybe we leave the house alone for right now. So it sounds like there might be more. We might have bitten off more than we can chew there, especially if the historical wants it.
I don't think they want it. I mean, I think it was sort of a given that it was going to be used for housing. We thought that was the condition that Mr. Guthrie was giving it to the town, is to be used for housing.
Oh, okay.
Because isn't that in the agreement with the planning board?
Yeah, the house, the barn, and 5 acres. Yeah, it's all
Yeah.
together. Yeah.
So a feasibility study, what could be done with the barn and the property?
Yeah.
I would include the house in that,
Yeah.
just to get an opinion from somebody about is it structurally sound? Can it be subdivided, made into 2 units? I think it's a big house. I think it could be 2 units pretty easily.
I think when Dave gave us the talk on what it was, the problem is that it's an old house, and back then people were a little shorter, so the ceilings aren't quite what they should be, and the hallways and the staircases were a little questionable. So there's probably some structural issues if we're going to try to do something. Maybe put 2 units in there. There's some design issues that might be challenging out there, but.
Well, I mean, comparing it to the Mary Brown house, it was, I think, had decent bones, but if you spent a lot of money renovating that, you'd still have, very low ceilings and very tight stairs and very awkward layout. And this house looks, I haven't been in it, but from the outside, it looks a little bit better.
Looks like a halfway decent colonial. You're right.
So I think we might have to live with some limitations, but I think it's worth at least looking at pretty seriously.
Okay.
So you
it's
want
just the structure.
See what they can at least give us an idea of.
Yeah. Yep. That sounds good. Okay.
All right. So, Maren or Cindy, you're going to contact somebody and set up a meeting to look at that property?
Myron, why don't you set it up with Green, and if you want me to, I will meet him out there.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I'll ask.
Perfect.
Yep.
Okay.
All right, that sounds good.
Mark, I'd like to go on that one too, if I could.
Great. That would be fine with me.
All right. Okay.
Oh, sorry, Bartlett, with respect to this report that Nancy presented tonight, do you want to maybe give the members of the board time to really review it and digest it, and maybe we talk about it again at our next meeting?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think we need to spend quite a lot of time sort of figuring out what the report tells us and then what we want to do about it.
Yeah, and how we want to use it, right?
How we're going to use it, right?
Okay, perfect.
So everybody's homework, including me, is to study it.
Read it. Yeah. Great.
Okay. Well, while we're doing updates, is there anything on the Littleton Station area? I've not been involved in that at all.
we've picked out a consultant to help us with design criteria out there. And when do we have another meeting? Next week, Myron? Is that when it is?
I talked with Peter tomorrow to figure out his schedule, see how soon he can meet with the committee again. But again, the developer's property owner has been talking about apartments there, as well as mixed use and some commercial.
And some seniors, yep.
Yeah, yep.
Okay. Can we roll the discussion of goals into the next discussion of Nancy's report?
Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
Those work together, kind of. Okay. Any public input?
It's 8 o'clock and my cigar is almost out.
All right, if there's no public input and no further discussion from Angus, multi-unit housing, you're absolutely right. How are we going to get that through the planning and zoning boards?
We're not opposed to it now. I mean, it's
Okay,
in specific
Well,
areas. That's what we're working on. That's why we're working on the station, and
Right.
we're
Right.
talking about having a 40R in place so that if it makes sense, that we can do it.
okay.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. If we look all the way back to the master plan, we identified several areas in town where apartments, well, more dense housing was appropriate and where residents said that they wanted it. And so the work that we did for Littleton Common for the form-based code, the zoning work there, that puts in place the zoning bylaws that would allow by right some apartments once you get the infrastructure settled there, once you get sewer to that area. And then for the train station area, similar, the station area committee is working on a zoning bylaw that would allow apartments, and the design guidelines is what we think will help it get past town meeting.
Yes.
Okay.
So,
Can we, I mean, going back to Matt Field, you think he'd be willing to discuss putting townhouses in there instead of, I mean, have a mix of bigger buildings and little buildings? I mean, I'm just thinking about, having a big tabletop with a whole bunch of little tiny monopoly houses on it. Scattered around. I mean, Levittown with a, 500 square foot house, just.
Right. So, Bartlett, you should look at Google up Summer Village in Westford,
Okay.
and it gives you a really good idea what it would look like. I know what you're saying with respect to the townhouses, but I mean, it's up to him as the builder. It seems to me like he pretty much has the concept that he wants to do, but I think we can't look at one project to solve all of our problems. I think we really need to look at what we have on the table personally.
Mm-hmm.
And Matt's proposed project brings a different component to the community that it brings an alternative housing choice or option to the community, which I think is really neat. And then we look at what's going on at Littleton Station, right? And the 40R and working with Robert Long and Nathan Long, what they're proposing at that area of town is going to bring a whole different, variety of housing to Littleton. So I don't think it's like one project that's going to solve all of our problems, but if we can get, different housing here and there with these projects, I think I look at it as feel that we're heading in the right direction in many respects with what we have going on right now.
No, I agree with you, but
I mean, it doesn't hurt to ask. We can certainly talk to him about that.
I'll go look at Summer Village, see what I can figure out.
I looked at it. I thought it was kind of neat.
All right. Mark, is your cigar out yet?
I have to relight it, so I think we're done here.
Next meeting?
Yeah, next meeting.
Okay, next meeting. Anybody have any?
So the Tuesdays in November, the 3rd is election day, so that's out for meetings. The 10th is the second Tuesday. The following day is a holiday, but I don't know if that affects anybody's schedule other than Ashley and me.
November 10th, Veterans Day. Any objections to November 10th?
The 10th is
No.
fine with me.
No, I'm good.
All right. It's done.
All right, great.
November 10th.
I have a question for Matthew.
Yeah.
I see the bed behind you. Is that where you have to sleep when you and your wife can't agree about a leash law for the town of Littleton?
I don't think she voted against that. No, this is my son who's in college's room, and I use it as an office now. When he gets back for Thanksgiving, I don't know what's going to happen because there's 4 of us and there's only like so many rooms you can use as offices.
I just didn't know if you and Christine didn't agree on a simple leash law in the town of Littleton if you were stuck there. That's all right.
That's the least of our problems, Mark.
I'm stuck outside. I have to sleep outside when I have problems.
We leave all of that outside the house.
Wow. All right, I'm done. My cigar's out.
All right.
Thank you all.
I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Moved by Angus.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Bye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Done. See you November 10th.
All right, great.